So today I am going to share with you, I have no idea what we're going to find out, but DNAlife has done my DNA. We're going to do 4 tests and we're going to discuss the results with Helen Gauci. Helen, thank you so much for doing this. And I don't know what we're going to be talking about today, but I'm excited that I'll be able to share it with my followers real time as it happens, because that's how much I love you. So welcome to the Lillian McDermott radio show test results. So share a little bit about your background before we get started.
Sure. So I'm Helen, thank you for introducing me. I'm a dietitian. I work at the company DNAlife in the area of practitioner support, as well as the research and development for the tests that we're going to be discussing today. So that's really an area of nutrition, dietetics, health and wellness, and then matching it to genetics for personalized interventions.
Very good.
So you did your genetic tests with the company DNAlife, where we took your sample. It's a buccal swab that you did. That came to.
Did I do a good job on my sample?
You did a good job.
I just rubbed the inside first thing in the morning, and I rolled it, and it was both. One side was one, and the other one was the other.
Exactly.
Okay.
First thing, and then you get a good sample, so it's non-invasive. It's easy to do. 2 weeks later, you get your results, and we're going to be discussing them. But just a little bit of background on really what we were doing when we were doing the actual analysis of your genes. We extract the DNA from those cells, and we look for specific variations on those genes that, based on those variations, they sometimes change how the eventual gene might code for the protein.
Okay.
So when we're looking at a gene, I just want to bring up this picture, and it's actually in the brochure as well, so you're able to see it. But it's quite nice because you can see on that little image, you're able to see that when we're looking for a variation on a gene, what happens is, on our genes we have, or on our DNA, we have these 4 letters that code for everything in our body.
Okay.
And the 4 letters A, T, C, and G.
A, T, C, and G. These are the 4 letters.
And in different combinations, those 4 letters codes for everything that makes up our body. So proteins, enzymes, how our cells eventually communicate with one another is based on those 4 letters. So our English language is a lot more complicated for us to be able to communicate with one another. Think of our body as actually being really clever to be able to communicate with just combinations of 4 letters.
Okay.
But what happens is when you've got a change in that letter, so instead of, say, let's take it back to English language, and we're using the word cat. And instead of having a C at a specific position, we now change it to an R. We're going to have not cats, but rats being made. So it's the same kind of concept when we're thinking of our DNA. Instead of having a cat being made, if we change that letter, it's going to change to a different protein being made, a different enzyme being made. So it's the same enzyme, but the structure of that enzyme is going to change. Okay. And because of that, when we look at how our body will respond to a specific dietary intervention versus how another person's body will respond, it's going to be different because of our unique genotype.
Okay.
And so that's really the core of what we're looking at, because with those variations, we're going to see changes in responsiveness to diet and lifestyle intervention. Okay, so let's get into your genes. So you did 4 tests. We're looking at the DNA diet.
And by the way, I want to say these tests are very affordable. So we can, if you go to your practitioner, discuss with them if they do DNAlife, and this would be very similar to what you would experience.
Exactly. So we're going to start. So you did the 4 tests. You did the DNA diet, the DNA health, DNA estrogen, and DNA sport tests. So I'm going to go through the DNA diet and DNA sport test with you first, and then we'll switch over and discuss the DNA health and the DNA estrogens after that.
Okay.
So the DNA diet test, why we would recommend doing this test is for individuals who have issues with weight management. They are looking to lose weight, and how would they lose the weight most appropriately for them and most easily for them.
Sure.
So are carbohydrates an issue? Are fats an issue? How much exercise do they need to do to get to that weight management?
And this will tell me all of that.
And it will give you an idea of where to go with that. And it helps with the practitioner then making up an eating plan to say, okay, this is how we're going to structure it specifically for you.
Got it.
Okay.
So it's a roadmap.
Exactly. It is a roadmap.
And I want to say that many DNA companies have come in as a fear tool. Like if you have a certain marker, or like say, for example, the BRCA gene, people are having their body parts removed, and 50% of the people that have the BRCA gene don't get cancer. So we can turn on our DNA and we can turn it off by our lifestyle. So this could be used as and the way I'm using it is to see what are my predispositions, how can I turn off that gene if I have the predisposition. And I'm really excited because I can even be more proactive with my life and the choices that I want.
Exactly. So
I'm excited.
It's very exciting. And the genes that we look at our company, there's always an actionable intervention that you can do with diet and lifestyle. So that's where we focus.
Okay.
So with the DNA diet test, we see in your results that your best diet or eating plan for you would be the Mediterranean style diet.
Okay.
So that's actually the nicest. We would either recommend a Mediterranean or a low carbohydrate or a low fat diet.
Okay.
So you come out a little bit in between. It's a great diet to be on. You have no issues with weight management.
Well,
I don't know if you work
you
hard.
know what? But many people think that obesity is genetic, and I have a mother and a sister that are, I would say, struggle with weight issues, and I made a choice when I watched them that I wanted to do something different for me, not knowing.
Okay, so you were doing it anyway.
Correct. But I primarily eat a nutritarian lifestyle. So let's see how this works.
So great. So just some principles on what the Mediterranean style diet is. It's a very plant-based diet.
Yeah.
It's got a good amount of good quality oily fish as your main source of animal protein. It's with regards to your other animal proteins, it's lean proteins that you would be including. So avoiding your high saturated fat intake from full cream dairy, fat on meat, things like that.
Don't eat any dairy.
Okay, so then you're already avoiding that. It's quite plant-based, so lots of different colors, very seasonal, very much field to plate kind of eating, and making sure you're involved in the cooking process. You understand where your food is coming from, and it's a lot to do with mindful eating as well.
Okay.
With regards to your macronutrients, so carbs versus fat with the Mediterranean style diet, your carbohydrates are kind of in the moderate area, so it's not a high carbohydrate diet, it's not low, it's sort of moderated. And then with regards to fats, we've got a strong focus on your olive oil and extra virgin olive oil, your monounsaturated fats.
Interesting. I've just recently given up oils. I don't eat oils. If I want the olive oil, I eat the olive.
Okay, so you can do it. That's
so
fine.
Is that okay?
You can do that.
Okay, because
So you can do wonderful. That would be your added fats.
So olive would be
olives. You can do avocado, pear if you like that as well.
Love those.
So that's also a good source of a monounsaturated fat. And then just a small handful of mixed nuts, raw mixed nuts, and that's where the Mediterranean style diet has its very important principles. Your extra virgin olive oil or olives, even better, and your avocado.
Very good.
So when we look at how we came to that outcome, and then we'll get into your exercise as well being very important. So the DNA diet also provides insight as to what exercise and the amount of exercise that would be most important for you to do to actually get to that weight management goal. We do recommend for you looking at around 20 MET hours of exercise per week. So I'll explain
20 hours per week?
So remember the MET, we're going to, so let's talk about the MET hours that we actually recommend for you, where because of the variations in your genes, we're actually seeing that we need to get a little bit more than what we would typically recommend just for health for you to mobilize your fat stores for energy. Okay, so it needs to be slightly above average types of exercise.
Okay.
So I hope you enjoy exercising.
Yeah, I do. I love going outdoors. Like yesterday when I got back to my room, I was right on the water, so I took a walk on the beach. Isn't it beautiful? Yeah. I'm going to scan up there later. Stunning. Yeah, it's beautiful.
So with the exercise, 20 MET hours, how we explain a MET hour is really it's the intensity of the activity that you're doing multiplied by the amount of time hours for the how long you're doing that activity for.
Okay.
So what we would see is if you, and we give examples at the end of the report where you're able to see the exercises.
Can you make this a little brighter? It's a little dark.
So if you can see, if you can look it up.
Okay, yeah, I can see it.
What exercise would you, cycling, jogging?
I like to walk.
Okay.
I don't run. I like to walk. I love to bicycle. I love to bike.
Okay, perfect. So if we're looking at that, then we could actually go, so let's look at bike. So that would be cycling.
Yes, cycling.
Okay, so so if you're doing 1 hour, so this is your an example of the exercise, and then on this side it is the intensity that the exercise is being done.
And what's the MET?
So that's your metabolic value. So this side it will give you your metabolic value per 1 time hour for doing that exercise.
Okay.
So if you see that for cycling, just general, or if you're doing cycling stationary, and you're getting to 150 watts, for a full hour, you will get 7 METs. So you need 20 for the week.
Okay.
So if you do that 3 times a week, you would be getting your 20 MET hours.
Oh, okay. So I thought I had to exercise for 20 hours in the week. I'm going, oh my God. And on top of all the stuff that I do, I don't think I can do it.
Be running and working.
Okay, so explain that to me again because I'm a little lost.
Okay, so we recommend the MET hours that you would have to do to, it's a way that you can, it's a measurable way to see how much exercise
so
you need
metabolic
to do
hours equal to
an example of an activity. So we exercise physiologists worked out from gardening to washing the dishes to actually doing an activity, a sport, you will get a metabolic value.
Okay.
So it's the intensity of that activity.
So how do I know how intense to go? Like when I'm a leisurely, right? I'm not.
So that's
racing.
where it's explained.
Okay.
It does give some further explanation over here. So we would be able to see, okay, so if you are cycling at 150 watts,
which is
that. So you would be able to see it if it's a stationary bike. You would see see that come up on the.
I'll have to check it out, yeah.
So you can just have a look there. Or you could see, generally when it's in the moderate intensity, you can talk, but you can't talk easily. It would be talking.
Okay, so I need to step it up a notch.
So you say you like walking, so let's look at this one. So if you're walking at 5.6, we South African, so
can we convert this to the matrix system
so in terms of miles, we would be looking at, my maths just off the top of my head, around 3 miles per hour. Would that sound right?
Well, 3 miles an hour is doable.
3, 4.
Yeah,
so it's a brisk walk.
Yeah.
So if you're doing that, just level. For a full hour, you're getting around 3.8 METs for that hour.
Okay.
So then if you were doing just walking, so if you weren't really, if you wanted to step it up a little bit more, you would get more METs. So if you were to do, say, a jog at around 6 miles per hour, then you would get your 8 METs for that hour. And that's a little bit more intense.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do that, say, for an hour, 3 times a week, or half an hour, almost every day, and that's really what we're trying to get to. So
as long as I get to 20 a week, I should be good. Okay, and we can I can ask you more questions on that. I mean, I don't want to. I'll learn a little bit more about it.
But that's how you would.
That's good. That's good. So it's a great way to gauge whether or not I'm getting enough exercise for me. Now, is that 20 hours, that metabolic hours, is that normal, or is that more or less than people?
It's slightly more. So
I need more exercise than most people.
Exactly. So when we're looking at your results, it actually came up with when I looked at your genes over here on this page. So these are your genes.
My genes.
This column here will be showing your genotype.
Let me show this. So this is what you would be, I don't know if you can see this, but this is what we're looking at next. Okay.
So did I think that's, so I think it's
flipped back.
So that one, so that is your gene table where we're able to see the genes that we're looking at, the area of activity in which they're acting, and then your specific genotype. And based on that genotype, we assign an impact factor to say, when are you going to have a different responsiveness compared to the norm?
Okay.
And what we see, and that's how, with those genotype results, we would be able to say, okay, based on that, the Mediterranean style diet is the most appropriate.
Okay.
And because there's certain genes here showing that exercise is more important for you than for someone else. So it is slightly higher than just the average. And so when we're looking at weight management, the best way actually to easily manage weight is that exercise.
Okay.
So weight management.
So it's time for me to do some 5K races or.
And that's it's exactly, getting a goal will make this so much easier. Okay. And that's when we go to DNA Sport to see, well, you've actually got some nice things. I had a sneak peek at your sport and there's some nice things there. So we can talk about that. But I'll just highlight one of the two of the things that came up with you, where the two genes that we're really seeing that are increasing your need for activity is this ADRB3, this ADBR3 over here, because of your TC genotype that you have.
What is that, TC?
So that's, remember those letters that we were speaking about? At that specific position on that gene, you could either have a TT, a TC, or a CC genotype.
And I have TC.
And you have TC.
Okay.
And so because of that C, that leads to when that protein is being made, it's being made in a slightly different way. And so if you're not doing exercise, it becomes very difficult to manage weight. Once you start doing exercise, it becomes much easier to manage weight.
Okay, that's good. So the C is about the exercise.
It's the responsive to the exercise.
Okay.
Exactly.
Good.
So it's good that one. And then your FTO over here.
FTO?
FTO, that A. So you've got an AT genotype. So you could have an AA, an AT, or a TT.
Okay.
And you've got AT.
AT.
And the A is the responsive one over there, also showing that having higher activity is going to help with weight management. If you're sedentary and with that genotype, weight management becomes really hard.
Okay. Good to know. I mean, that would be very helpful for people that are trying to figure out what works best for their body, and they are eating well, but not doing what they need to do in the gym.
Exactly. Yeah. So that rule of, what is it? Is it exercise? Is it calorie restriction? Where do they need to focus? So for some individuals, it's really the exercise to start mobilizing and improving that metabolic rate. So then from that information, we then provide little scales where you're able to see where your focus areas are. As I said, it's for you have a low barrier for weight loss. So if you make little tweaks, you'll get to your weight management goal.
Okay.
And
well, what I want is building muscle, because at my age, the weight can pile on, especially in the midsection. So that's what I want to be able to manage at this
Okay,
point.
so let's then I think let's
Next.
move on to sport, because I think that's going to be very interesting for you. But
Okay.
from you, we can see that Mediterranean style diet, both carbohydrates and saturated fat just need to be moderated,
Okay.
and that's perfectly, I think, what you're doing already. So just innately, you were doing the right thing, which is fantastic.
So I eat a nutritarian diet, which focuses on micro and macronutrients. And then I don't restrict myself. If there's a really nice piece of fish, I might have it. But I'm hearing at this conference that might not be good.
As long, fish if it's well caught, if it's just sourced correctly, it's great with omega-3 fatty acids.
Yeah.
And can be really healthy for you.
And it's been, I would say, months and months and months since I've had any animal products. So that's how much I miss it. I don't miss it at all.
So you're doing really well anyway.
Thank you.
And then just the big thing here is the exercise. We just wanted to say it's not in the low, it's more low to moderate, so it just needs to be a little bit higher.
Okay.
And if you focus on that, it should be.
So I could tell that I'm not exercising enough?
No, so we can't tell that. So
I thought I was a rat.
No, we can only see the genes.
Okay.
And then that's why we do go through practitioners, because we would give them the information on the genes, but then that practitioner would still see you take all of your history into account, your dietary history, your preferences, your goals, and then compile together with the genotype
to work
results
with my body as opposed to against my body.
Exactly.
And I will say, one of the reasons I chose DNAlife is because they teach their practitioners how to read this. They're just not just going to give you this, because it could be complicated.
It is.
Yes.
It is complicated without practitioner involvement and without the education as well.
Yes. Okay.
So based on, your principles and everything I explained, and we hope to make it quite user-friendly, so you can go home and look through this and read little pearls as you go through.
Sure.
But the main take-home message: Mediterranean style, plant-based, what you're doing, and then just up that exercise.
Perfect. Okay, so that is the diet, DNA diet. We're going to move on to DNA sport.
Okay, so
I'm going to turn the page.
I'm just going to.
So DNA sport is pretty much going to confirm what DNA diet, right?
Well, we're going to look with DNA sport what exercises are going to be the most useful for you to do to actually get almost the best out of your training program.
Okay.
So I'm just going to.
Okay, now we're going to do DNA sport.
So you've got a really lovely DNA sport report, and just some things that we want to focus on to help you just improve your training program and decrease risk for injury, improving your recovery time as well.
Okay.
So with DNA sport, what this test actually shows you is looking at your power and endurance potential and how to modify your training program to focus on, if you're training for a 5K or your 5K runs, if you're looking at doing a marathon or a half marathon, how can you get the best time for that event?
Okay.
And looking at your power and endurance potential in that, personalizing the program there. And then also looking at injury risk, which is really important. If you are exercising and you're enjoying exercising, you want to make sure that you don't have any hiccups because there's an injury that's come through because you're pushing too hard, and genetically there's a risk for injury.
Okay.
And then looking at recovery time, how can we improve that if it's an issue?
Okay.
So genetically what we see, and you can actually just see from this table, it's just your lovely quick snapshot of your results. So we see that based on your results, and the genes are listed later, but this is actually just such a nice user-friendly page for you to see, is that your injury risk is high. So I'm not sure if you've suffered from any injuries in the past. Okay, well, that's really good. Do you enjoy doing high intensity exercises?
I used to, but not so much anymore.
Okay, and it's probably a good thing not to do it too much. And if you are going to focus on them, because we've got some great potential coming through here, but if you are going to focus on them, just to make sure that you are making sure you're getting in your rest days and not pushing too hard all of the time, because what we're looking at with injury risk is your ability to make your collagen fibers, and it's also looking at the breakdown. So it's that whole remodeling process that we're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And genetically, your ability to remake collagen after it's been broken down, and especially with high intensity exercise, with lots of weight bearing and load bearing exercise, there is this constant degradation of your collagen fibers, which is normal, but how well are we building it up again?
Yes, that's what I want to know.
So genetically for you, it's slightly lower than we would like it to be. And
Okay.
so we need to make sure that you're supporting that.
And how do we support?
So number one, we need to focus on what types of exercises you're doing. So if you are looking at increasing your running, so going from walking, which is nice and moderate, and shouldn't give you too many injury issues, if you're going into running, or if you say you like biking,
Mm-hmm.
so doing that, making sure that to decrease injury risk, we're looking at, is your bike set up correctly? So make sure that the seat is in the right alignment with the pedals. So just little things like that that can actually make
Mm-hmm.
a huge, had a huge impact on injury risk. Making sure that you are strengthening supporting tendons. So if you visit a physio or an exercise physiologist, they would be able to, or a good trainer, they would be able to give you just supportive exercises to make sure that all supportive tendons are strong, so that they can decrease risk.
Okay.
The two best things is core strength. So if you enjoy things like Pilates or yoga, making sure your core is really strong, that is a very good injury preventive measure. And then stretching.
Mm.
So I know we often forget about this one, and especially after long runs and long events, we're tired and we don't want to do it.
Okay.
But for you, it is really, really important that after every event, after every exercise session, you stretch and you do the full stretch work.
Okay.
Okay. And then in terms of nutrition, it's very important to allow specific building blocks so that you can make collagen. So here we need to make sure that you are getting an adequate protein.
Okay. So what would be an adequate protein that would build collagen?
So your animal protein is a great source. It's a complete protein. It's great. You could look at other proteins such as your natural soy if you're looking at a more vegetarian.
Yes, I eat lots
so
of
then
soy.
you could look at something like that as well, which would assist. And then the other things would be your vitamin C.
To take lots of vitamin C.
Fantastic. Your citrus is a great source, and iron as well.
Oh.
So iron, your green leafy vegetables, together
Lots
with
of that.
vitamin C. Vitamin C helps with the absorption of your green leafy vegetable iron, and so that would be very important as well, just to focus on.
Good.
And together with that, and then making sure you're strengthening your core, you should be able to moderate this high risk.
Okay. Now I notice here salt sensitivity. What is that?
Yes. So
and caffeine, because I can't drink caffeine.
Okay, so we can see when we get to the DNA health, I'll show you why.
Okay.
But what we're looking at here is with regards to caffeine is one of the most commonly used ergogenic aids with regards to sports performance.
Mm-hmm.
Why do some people perform really well with caffeine? Other people have no effect. And what we see is there's a gene encoding an enzyme that actually breaks down caffeine. And if you are a fast metabolizer, you get that effect quickly.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a slow metabolizer, you don't actually get the performance benefits.
No, it hits me at 2 o'clock in the morning.
So with
I'm up.
so you are a fast metabolizer, but there's another gene that we look at in the DNA health test, and that's the reason you have a problem breaking down those excitatory hormones that caffeine helps to stimulate.
Mm.
So even though if you're doing a race, you'll get a benefit from it with regards to performance. So your time might be better than someone who is a slow caffeine metabolizer. But when we're looking at how you feel with it, there's a gene that we see that your genotype just doesn't respond.
Interesting.
Very well.
The bottom line is we need to listen to our body. our body does speak to us, and I know that it's been telling me get off caffeine, and I haven't been on caffeine in a long time.
Okay, very good. So it's good to hear that, and we'll show you in the DNA Health Report why that is. So the injury risk recovery time, you've got to really, when we're looking at inflammation and oxidative stress, there are genes that encode for those pro-inflammatory markers, your antioxidant enzymes that help fight free radicals in your body. You've got really good genes there, so
nice.
You were blessed over there with good genes.
Nice.
Where you can see that so these are all of your pro-inflammatory markers, and the way you're making them, it's just there's not much going on. So
what you're saying, there's not a lot of inflammation in my body? So
genetically, if we were to have, so this is your results. I have variations on these genes. So at baseline, I make a lot more of these pro-inflammatory markers versus you.
Nice.
So when we're
I'm sorry about you, but nice for me. Sorry, I don't mean to celebrate, but go ahead.
But so my interventions have to be that much more extreme.
Yeah.
Whereas for you, you should be able to recover quite quickly after exercise.
Okay.
Whereas I really do feel it.
Okay.
So it's a really nice, very nice panel to see. So you get fast recovery from exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So that's great to see. And then the next area that we're looking at is actually your power and endurance potential. How much power and how much endurance do you have? And we see that you, from this area, we're looking at the benefits. So whenever you see impacts coming through here, we can actually see, well, there's quite a bit of genetic talent around exercise performance.
Oh, okay.
So it should hopefully motivate you with knowing that you need to exercise a little bit more. Well, there's reason to do it because you'll perform well from doing it. And if you just put in a little bit of work, you'll see a lot of gain.
Okay. So tennis, anyone?
There you go. And tennis you would be great at.
I have the racket. I just haven't gone in the court. Yeah.
So remember the injury risks. So just making sure that you've got your core stabilized, you're stretching with that, and you just build up slowly if you haven't done it in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But with tennis, you'd actually be great. You've got, with your genetic results, we see that you are more of a power-based athlete. With tennis, it is quite a power-orientated sport. You obviously need endurance because it can be long sessions, and that fitness does need to be built up, but you have the genes showing that your fitness ability should go up quite fast.
Great.
And then your ability to, for those power-based exercises is also there.
Okay.
So you've got a very nice power potential going on. And then you were talking about muscle building.
Mm-hmm.
So you actually, looking at this gene, TRHR, it's your thyrotropin releasing hormone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll actually show you, I'll bring it up here so you can actually see the information when we talk about it. But you have the genotype, which is actually quite rare, to be able to build lean body mass much better than other individuals.
Love that.
So you've got good genes. So TRHR involved in increasing metabolic rate, which is required to mobilize fuels during exercise, and where the TT genotype, the one that you have, is associated with increased gains in lean body mass with training. So if you spend some, and you already are, we're seeing that you're a power-based athlete. So if you just spend some time in the gym, maybe not, you don't have to go to the gym. I mean, if we're at the beach, you can do some plyometric exercises, just using your own body weight, but making sure that you, with that body weight, you'll if you just do that and focus on that, you should be able to actually build that lean body mass quite well.
Okay. Even at my age.
Even at your age.
Okay.
So focus on it because you've got the potential. It now just needs to be woken up.
Okay, so I'm going to set the alarm. Okay, wake up the potential.
Wake that up and yeah. So if you want to do weight training, you should see really good gains.
Okay.
Or if you're not that into weights, but if you want to do just your own, using your own body as your resistance, you should get good gains as well.
Okay, good.
Okay, so power, some high intensity tennis, you'll see really nice performance coming through there.
Give it a try.
Okay, so that's your DNA sport. Really nice results.
That was good. Okay, so which one's next?
So DNA Health.
DNA Health.
This is the most comprehensive of all of the nutrigenetic tests. If you're looking at wanting to just improve overall health status, not just living long, but living well.
Yes,
we don't
that's
want to
my
live,
intention.
Exactly, and you're doing a good job of it.
Thank you.
So what we see with your DNA Health results is actually your genotype is almost standing you in good stead already. That you have very little variation in your genes leading to weaknesses in these key biochemical processes. So with just a few tweaks, we could get you to your optimal state.
Really? Tell me more.
Whereas other people, there's a lot going on and they really need to work a lot harder to get there.
Okay. So now if I would have eaten a certain way or continue to abuse my body, would those markers be different?
So we can't change your genotype, so this wouldn't be different.
Okay.
But if you were to be just abusing your body, it would, your genotype can only give you so much protection.
Right.
And then it flips over.
Okay.
Whereas if you had a lot of variation here and you weren't eating well, it would be so much worse.
Yes. Okay. Good to know. See?
Lucky. Very lucky. So we see with your results we have a summary table in the beginning which will help just to show for you where your priority areas are. Okay. And so the ones I'm going to highlight for you is that one we were talking about with the caffeine and just your ability to sleep at night because if you drink caffeine.
Yeah.
And then we're also going to speak about your bone health, which has come up there's a predisposition around that. So we just want to focus on making sure all the interventions are in place. So what we see when we look at this test, you can see we actually go through gene variations involved in key areas from your lipid metabolism or looking at healthy cholesterol levels to methylation, which is very important for understanding B vitamin requirements. Then looking at detoxification, that's your biotransformation pathways. How well are you getting rid of toxins that you're exposed to in the environment? You've got some good going on there. Inflammation, we spoke about in DNA Sport as well, where you don't have a lot of factors increasing risk genetically for a high inflammatory level. So also very nice. A little bit we could work with oxidative stress, so we could maybe support those antioxidants enzymes a little bit more, but your diet full of greens, full of colors, helps. That helps. And then bone health is where we're going to focus. And then the last area is insulin sensitivity, but also for you, not a major priority. Okay.
So high bone health. So let's take a look at. So that would be when we look at this, we'd look at the ones that are calling and screaming. Okay.
Exactly. So, and it helps to focus. We all want to be perfect 100% of the time. It doesn't happen. We're human. So let's focus on the areas where there is a weakness.
Okay.
So it's bone health, and then it's this one we call COMT. So COMT, C-O-M-T. It's a gene encoding an enzyme that's really important in breaking down excitatory hormones. And it's also very important in estrogen health as well. So what we see with the genotype that you have, the AA genotype leads to a lower function of that enzyme.
Okay.
So when we're looking at excitatory hormones and caffeine helps to increase those excitatory hormones. Okay. And you break those hormones down slowly. So with caffeine, you've got this rise in all this excitement, and then 2 a.m., you're wide awake, eyes wide open, because you're not breaking down those excitatory hormones as quickly as we would like.
Okay. So how do I...
So interventions, we can't change genotype, but we can look at good interventions to help. And so what we see is avoiding caffeine, avoiding the excitatory stimulation, weight management, just to relieve the load overall on this little enzyme. Then also looking at increasing magnesium intake.
Increasing magnesium, interesting. What kind of magnesium?
So it's really dependent on, I mean, there are a whole bunch of different types, and that's again where the practitioner would look at the patient and treat holistically. But in terms of food intake and sources of magnesium, we can get it through our lentil family, as well as pumpkin seeds, has a really nice amount of magnesium, and then just generally fruits and vegetables. So if you have a wide variety of that. Also, supplemental to intake could be beneficial, especially if you are exercising quite a lot. Individuals with a lot of exercise lose a lot of magnesium, and so in those cases it might help. So if you find that you cramp quite easily with high exercise, it could be because of this little guy as well.
Okay.
So just that magnesium. And then we'll speak about DNA estrogen a little bit, but I'm going to bring it in here is your, what we call your cruciferous vegetable intake.
Okay.
So cruciferous, when we look at cruciferous vegetables, we're talking about broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage. And why it's cruciferous, if you cut one of those, if you cut broccoli or a cabbage, a whole cabbage in half cross-sectionally, actually if you look inside, there's a cross. So crucifer.
I've seen it. Yes.
And that's why they're called that. Those vegetables have potent compounds inside them that help to upregulate and help to support detoxification processes, which will again just take the load off count.
Okay, so you're saying, what I'm hearing you say is that I need to have lots of cruciferous vegetables.
So that's your family where you want to focus.
Okay, good to know.
Okay, so of all the veggies, one of those.
So broccoli and, no, not broccoli, kale and spinach is not part of the cruciferous.
Kale?
Kale is?
Kale is.
Okay.
Broccoli is.
Broccoli is. What about cauliflower?
Yes.
And cabbage.
Cabbage.
I love purple cabbage.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts, okay. There you go.
There are others, we don't have to go to Brussels sprouts.
Bok choy.
Bok choy,
I
exactly.
love it. Okay, so
one,
you're speaking my language.
So there we go. So just innately, you were doing so much right anyway. So that's just really where we want to focus with that one. So the magnesium, lower caffeine, lots of cruciferous, weight management.
Okay.
Okay, and you're getting in lots of colors. And then the other area where we want to really focus for you is bone health.
Yes.
So what we're seeing with the bone health, we're looking at the BDR gene, which is encoding your vitamin D receptor. And in that gene, what we see is that you're carrying variations that's leading to that receptor functioning at slightly decreased capacity.
Okay.
So that has then been related to a higher risk for a lower bone mineral density. So we want good bone mineral density, especially as we age, because that's going to make sure that we decrease risk of osteoporosis and bone fractures, really.
Okay, and how do I increase my mineral bones?
So one of the big interactions here is caffeine. Again, that's going to be your big take-home message, lower caffeine. So with the variations you carry and with a high caffeine intake, it really decreases your ability to absorb calcium.
So question. So I need to not have any caffeine, but there are products that have a natural caffeine in it, like chocolate, for example, cacao, or...
So, I mean, that's quite a bit lower.
That's nominal. So we're talking coffee?
We're talking coffee. We're talking energy drinks with caffeine.
Yeah, don't do any of that. What about decaffeinated coffee?
It won't have the same effect.
So I can have decaffeinated still, yeah. Okay.
So it's for this one, it's a limit of 300 milligrams per day.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of dark chocolate here and there is
not going to kill me.
Not going to kill it.
Actually, the minerals are good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can
real chocolate, not the good Hershey's stuff. Yeah.
No, the good quality. Okay. And then what we want to also make sure of is ensuring adequate vitamin D intake.
And how much do you think is that what?
So I would maybe look at testing blood levels if you want to do that, and then you could consider a supplement. Speak to your healthcare practitioner or your doctor, and they could recommend that. Also, getting out into the sun helps with that actual activation of vitamin D. So being out in the sun, vitamin D makes you happy. There's a reason for that. And sun makes you happy.
Yes.
And then also ensuring your intake of adequate bone building nutrients. So calcium often relates to dairy intake, but you can get calcium from other great sources, being broccoli, your fish, your baby fish as well, which won't have a high mercury or toxin load.
So the sardines.
Sardines. If you go to Spain, eat your sardines, get out into the sun, that kind of thing would be the way to go.
I will book my flight to Spain in a little bit.
And then you've got your Mediterranean style diet.
That's right. I'm there. You know, I'm so drawn to those areas.
So looking at that, it's your vitamin D, your calcium, avoiding caffeine.
Okay.
And then again, your bone or your load-bearing exercises.
Okay.
So if you consider what we already actually mentioned in the DNA sport, with a little bit of weight, you're going to be building lean body mass. You do that really well. But doing that on top of your just building lean body mass, you're actually strengthening your bones.
Cool.
So it all actually works together really well.
Yes, the body is perfect.
So for you, we want to take home message so far is your load-bearing exercises, higher intensity power type exercises, Mediterranean style diet, avoiding caffeine.
Good. That it for this one? Okay, what's next? So now the last test that I had done is my estrogen test, which I had never heard of such a test. Are you guys the only ones in the market doing this?
I think there might be another company. Actually, I'm quite sure there is another company that looks at it.
Okay.
So here, when we're talking about DNA estrogen, we are looking at risk for what we would consider estrogen dominant disorders, as well as, so that would be your endometriosis, bad PMS symptoms, and then also looking at eventually risk for breast and ovarian cancer. But we want to, instead of talking about that, you can really
prevention.
Fix what's going on, balance that estrogen pathway. And here, you mentioned BRCA at the beginning of the session, where we were saying, well, there is this increased risk for breast cancer with BRCA mutations. We're not looking at BRCA. We're looking at that 90 to 95% of all cases that are actually not BRCA. They are what we would term sporadic. So sporadic is where there's actually quite a low family history, and what we would call polygenic, lots of genes, multifactorial, lots of risk factors, and the compounding effect of that leading to increased risk. So it's looking at really how we are taking that estrogen and breaking it down. If we're breaking it down into a healthy metabolite, good to go.
Good.
If we have variations on these detoxification genes leading to a push towards more unhealthy reactive metabolite formation, that's where we might have increased risk for our DNA damage, and the DNA is being damaged in the tissues that have the estrogen. So that's where we want to focus on how can we balance estrogen metabolism. And what we're seeing coming through for you is there are a few inefficiencies where there's a stronger push towards making a more reactive estrogen metabolite. So genetically it's there, but remember, with diet, lifestyle, and everything, you could just completely be negating that risk. So we're seeing that just genetically a stronger push towards an unhealthy metabolite, and then once that metabolite has been made, we want to try and clear it as quickly from the body as possible. So it's about that phase 1, making the metabolite, and then phase 2 is about seeing those harmful little guys and neutralizing and excreting them as quickly as possible. So what we see is with your phase 2, there does need to be a little bit of extra support because there's a little bit of just a weakness in that area as well. And so there might be a bit of a bottleneck formation if we don't manage it. So what we want to do is really focus on, number one, when we're looking at phase 1, decrease the load. So I think we were in a similar talk earlier today. We were talking about decreased toxin load, decrease exposure. So instead of just trying to help your body all the time, just decrease what's coming in. Avoiding BPA from plastic.
So this is the toxic overload that we've been focusing on the show lately. So BPA.
Your BPA, your PAHs, so your polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, from just really exhaust fumes and cigarette smoke. Then looking at your smoked foods and char-grilled foods, making sure that,
No, but in the past I've had those.
So, our body clears it all the time. We have this amazing detoxification organ and processes in our body working all the time. It's just that if we're putting so much load on it all the time, it gets tired.
Yes, and so my body has a harder time getting rid of it, which explains why just recently I went on a detox program that I had to stop because I felt really sick.
So it's maybe just a little bit slower that it needs to happen.
Exactly.
And you know, we have foods that help us detox all the time. Those cruciferous vegetables, they're brilliant detox foods.
Okay.
So avoiding the load, it helps just with avoiding what you're having to deal with every day. Your plastics, smoked foods, environmental pollution, weight management. The more body fat we have, the higher our ability to actually store a lot of toxins, because fat is a toxin storage vessel, really. And the other thing is with that is our fat cells can make a lot of estrogen, and we're talking about estrogen here. So we want to, by keeping a healthy weight, then that also helps a lot.
Good.
Exercise as well is really important in this area, because moderate intensity exercise on a regular basis will help with your antioxidants processes, as well as just helping to detoxify. Okay. So that's avoidance, that's toxin avoidance, and just improving that area. And then in phase 2 detoxification, how do we support that? So here we see for you some of the big things around supporting detoxification, and we did speak about it a little bit in the DNA health test, was that cruciferous vegetable family. So really to focus on that. Another one that I didn't mention in that family is watercress. So if you're wanting to do wonderful fresh salads, it's a nice way to get
You know, when I was a little girl, I used to eat a lot of watercress, and the other day I was I just had a arugula salad not too long ago. I'm like, I love this.
That nice
brings
spicy.
Yes. So I'll get back to watercress.
Perfect. Then also looking at your phytonutrient intake, so phyto, color, so lots of different colors in the diet. Flax is also considered to be quite beneficial for the genes that you have.
Been eating lots of flax.
So great. So that's something we want to really focus on. And you say you eat your natural soy products as well.
Yes, and it's non-GMO, all organic.
Perfect.
Yes.
And then that could also be really important. So we see, because of the genotype that you have a beneficial responsiveness.
Isn't that interesting? And there's so much negative publicity out there. Stay away from estrogen. I mean, soy and soy products. And I just recently fell in love with a tempeh product that is made here in South Florida, and I am obsessed with it.
Well,
yes,
fantastic. So it's good that you like it.
Good.
It's those phytoestrogens that we're after, and that's what you're doing.
Good.
So for your estrogen detoxification, we want to make sure there's weight management. You've got that covered. The exercise, we've got that covered as well. We can just tweak it a little bit. And then looking in terms of dietary intake, it's those phytoestrogens, the natural soy, and your flax seeds, and then also looking at your cruciferous vegetable family. So at least a portion every day of your cruciferous.
Done.
And that's going to really support these processes that are showing a few weaknesses.
Okay, so does that give me any indication of how much progesterone or testosterone should be in my system, or does it work?
What this would give me, so in terms of indication of if I were to say do a urinary hormone metabolite test or a salivary hormone test, what that would give an indication of is the estrogen metabolites, but together with lifestyle.
Okay.
So yes, I do see weaknesses coming through here, but considering what you've told me about your lifestyle, I wouldn't expect too much abnormality in the real-time test.
Okay.
Because you already put in the intervention without me even telling you this. So that's great. It's great that you've listened so well to your body. But maybe just if you were to be struggling with any of those estrogen dominant type disorders, and I'm seeing this, I would say, well, it would give me an indication of those metabolites if we were to do a test.
Okay.
But in terms of steroid, progesterone, that's where it's a little bit more complicated.
Okay, but this is something that's really good. Is there anything else in this information? Okay, so we're almost done here, and Chris has joined us. Why don't you say hello and share a little bit about yourself, Chris?
Hello, my name is Chris Moore. I'm the CEO of Nordic Laboratories, and we're based in Copenhagen. I've been working within the field of functional medicine since 1997, and today we're in 30-odd countries around the world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This has been great, very informative. She's been wonderful. And so they're going to be on our show, and we're going to continue to grow and learn more about how we can be proactive in our life and our DNA health. Right? That's the goal. That's the goal, to live the life of our dreams. And so far, I think I'm pretty good.
Well.
Yeah. So stay tuned. There's going to be more.